Hej allihopa, välkomna tillbaka till Halland Tech Week. Och vi på Potential, VBG i Varberg, inkubator här, har nöjet att presentera ett besök från Volvo Cars. Och vi ska nu få lyssna på XR and the future of the mobile industry. Mobile industry. Och det är Timmy Ghiurau, Volvo Cars, och han arbetar med user experience och framework. Hjärtligt välkommen.
Thank you. Hello. My talk is called Snapback to Reality, Here Comes Gravity. It has some connotations to some of the Eminem lyrics. It's not necessarily because it has to do with VR, but I will talk about my journey as a creative and then moving to the startup world and then ending up in the corporate world. And that's where gravity hits you, because we're all dreamers, we like to create, we like to build. But then when reality hits, that's when you need to learn how to run around obstacles, find solutions, and I will talk about that today. So I will share a bit my story today. I'm Timmy Ghiurau, I'm from Transylvania. And I was really a nerd as a kid. I liked video games, I like mathematics. But as any kid, I got distracted, so I wanted to be a rock star instead. And I decided to move to Copenhagen to study music. Didn't tell my parents. They thought that I'm going to do engineering. So I went to Royal Academy of Music, but then that's when first reality hit me. I became homeless because artist life is hard. I didn't tell my parents. I was sleeping in the airport for about 2 months and going to school in the night. I was playing in the pubs just to get some money to get to school. And then I just realized that, I can't do this. Like, artist life was too hard, and especially in Copenhagen, it's a lot of competition, like a lot of good musicians. And I decided to quit that, and I remembered that I was good at tech and I was a nerd after all. So I went to Aalborg University in Copenhagen. It started exactly that year, like 2010, and that's when Nokia was going down. They were paying all their employees salaries for a year or two, and the previous Nokia employees, when they were let out, the ones from Copenhagen, they were smart enough to put their money together. Our university moved in, and that's where a lot of startups emerged, like seniors, world experts in various topics, like in mobile computing, 5G, 4G, you name it. That's how they started to form this startup cluster, and then Startup Bootcamp, Venture Cup, and other initiatives like this started. So then one of my teachers, after seeing like how I work, introduced me to these guys who are the Unity founders. They founded the Unity engine, which is this popular game engine. 80% of all the games you play on your mobile phone are made in Unity. 90% of pretty much all VR, AR experiences made in Unity. Now they expand to infotainment systems in the cars, software for self-driving cars, and they're growing and growing. So after that, I was kind of a student trying to learn from them. David, CEO, became my mentor, and then I saw that this power that technology has, and back then we were kind of trying to use their tool to integrate with other startup ideas, people that wanted to create especially games or tools for research. So then I got really hooked about the idea of VR, and that was really early. I was looking into interaction in VR, so I moved to another startup that was really next door called the iTribe. I was their first employee, so I was looking on how to use eye tracking for interaction in games. They were focusing mainly on disabled people, on like pretty much like Toby back then. We were competitors looking on how to use eye tracking as an interaction method. So then we were doing that with everything, like smartwatches, at the point hacked Fruit Ninja, so instead of swiping with your finger, you were using your eye, and the eye is the fastest organ in your body, so we broke the world record first time we tried it. Then we went to CS, so people like Richard Branson, Mark Zuckerberg, Palmer Luckey, who founded Oculus, they saw this, they got really interested, and we went back home, so I was thinking to try it out even more. Then Lego approached us, so I had to develop this project as my thesis, where I used eye tracking for interaction, but also brainwaves. So I was thinking, for Lego, for their Star Wars franchise, why not making this Jedi scene where you control everything with your mind, you use your eyes, and we did this game where you had to fly around and aim at spaceships with your eyes and then think when to shoot. And we had to make it appealing for Danish kids. They can't stand still, they can't use technology. It was really hard to make it work, to be user friendly. And that's when I understood the power of user experience, about how to trigger them, how to use different cues to make them focus in certain ways. And it was really good learning. After that, this guy bought us. I got sick of the tech world after that. I had a dispute with Facebook for about 3 years, and I was almost getting homeless again. So I was a bit sick of the tech world, so then I felt sorry that I quit my creative dream. So I moved to fashion in Copenhagen. I started to work with some avant-garde companies, some designers there, because I learned that the things that I was doing in Unity and in gaming, I can do them in fashion, like concepts, like creating environments, like preparing for photo shoots. So I was making different mood boards and trying to look at how to combine my creative skills with the tech skills, and this kind of building worlds, building concepts, building characters. But then I realized that I don't have to choose if I want to be a creative or a nerd. I can be both. And again, the context, the ecosystem. Volvo Cars had their office just next door in Copenhagen. So they saw what I was doing, what I was playing around. We were having lunch. There was this open space. So they said, come and work with us. So first I did my thesis with them. And then I kept showing up for 6 months till they decided, well, we might as well pay you. So, yeah. So it was an interesting fade in from the startup world to corporate world. It was a total different experience, but I realized how to combine combine creative thinking and critical thinking, and that intersection, that's where creativity sparks. And I often say that you need a box to be able to think outside a box, and automotive is a pretty hard box. And understanding again how to move from vision to solution. As I said, I'm a dreamer. I work with the future, but we have problems today. And that balance was really interesting, to find how you do iterations, how to find the right direction. And that's how I with that mindset, it's how I started to work at Volvo. And to do that, I had to understand how to align with the view. What is the company's vision, the freedom to move in a personal, safe, sustainable way. And when I realized that, that the technologies, the tools that I've been working with, I can use them to save lives, or I can use them to create more sustainable cars. But that came also with a lot of hard work, the company politics, how to do strategy and tactics in the same time, how to choose who to talk to. I used to have enemies like legal department and finances because I wanted to buy all this equipment. But then I learned how to be friends with them. Hey, I can help you with this, but you help me with that. So that thing, I still applied a bit of the startup mentality in a corporate, being an entrepreneur and inventing my job there. And about a year ago, I've been at Volvo for 5 years. I was never a car person. I never had that moment with my dad of kicking tires, checking the engine. I was more interested in guitars and games. But that moment when I was working on the S90 and when it came out, he visited me and we drove to Oslo together, and I could point, hey, I worked on this button, and seeing that smile and just the impact you can have on a product and the scale, like from one car to 600,000 cars, and it's a lot. And just seeing how you can influence user experience through product. So we started Open Innovation a year ago. We got the question from high management, like, how do we work with innovation? We had I think 3 or 4 innovation reorganizations at Volvo so far, and we were looking still for the right model. So why Open Innovation Arena? So we are moving now from being a car company to being a mobility provider, from being a mobility provider to being a tech company, because it becomes more complex, it's more software. There's this saying that the software is the car, and it's true. It's like more electronics, more software. We go for electrification, for self-driving cars. So it's like really hard to actually make it work in a good balance. And we've been focusing on human-centric design for so long, and we realized that we need to be society-centric and earth-centric. And to do that, like for instance, what does car safety mean, but what does society safety mean? What is planetary safety? And then we take omtanke, the word that probably our safety value came from, and actually we grind it as much as possible to understand, can we build other products than the car with the same principle? Can we provide, data safety, for instance? So we're having this mentality, and we collaborate with a lot of startups, a lot of partners. So later I will show kind of the way we approach startups, the way we work with innovation, how we do proof of concepts together, the incubators, accelerators, and forming this ecosystem. And I call it ecosystem and not ecosystem for a reason. So as I said, to move from a manufacturer to a mobility provider, it's super hard, and we need to explore the unknowns. And we just make it inclusive and, enabling people to participate freely and collaborate on various ideas. And it can be anything from doing a VR experience, doing storytelling, to actually do a better wiper for the car, to city projects, thinking about space, energy, and others. So it's like big variety, but we need this variety to create emergence, to set the right temperature for innovation. So how do we do it? We have this hub where we do lab and experimentation. We collaborate with startups. We collaborate with product streams in the company. So we need to listen inside out and outside in, and then we connect them together. And I don't know why this slide is white, but let me check. It just stopped for some reason. Yeah, can you skip to the slide? Can you scroll down a bit more? Yeah, leave it there. Great. I'll just... did it froze? I'll just have some coffee. Yeah, it works now. Yeah, so to be able to understand what are our ambitions, we are thinking on quadrants. So we have the 4 quadrants: current business, current trajectory. It's like what we do, produce cars. Then quadrant 2 is like known unknowns, like relates to newly businesses, like M, like mobility, car sharing, still has to do with cars. Then we have unknown knowns, like services like in-car delivery, charging, parking, And then unknown unknowns, that's the dragon land, that we have no idea what's out there. But there we send just a few people. It's like usually you have that old lady in a village that told you, okay, don't go out because there are dragons. So we need to send some brave people to go there, but we don't let them mingle with the rest too much because it will poison their minds or like distract them too much. So they go there, play with the dragons, we grab them, put them in a meeting for 20 minutes with the guys in the suits, and then, okay, enough, go and play with the dragons. So that's a way to open their minds just enough so we can actually, they trust us to explore. And innovation is expensive. We need to try a lot of things. We fail, we combine a lot of things. That's why we have this huge variety between VR, academic projects, remote work, what if we can be an energy company instead? It's like a lot of ideas that we have, and we try out this hypothesis. And that's why we do it in this map, from early exploration to really define teams, define projects. And one example that I will talk more here, it's like VR, because that's one of my fields, because it's an area that gathered a lot of density in the company. It started from 1 or 2 persons, and now we're over 60 people that do it. So in many cases, we had to outcubate from innovation arena, so they became their own departments. And that's how we graduate innovation. They either become their own units, groups in the company, or we can outcubate as a spin-off outside. So we talk about ecosystems. Like when I was presenting with a colleague, how do we work on innovation? And to be a tech company, we need to understand what an ecosystem is. But by mistake, I misspelled it, and it turned out into ecosystems. And I was thinking it still makes sense. Like you need to create a sound, make a hypothesis, a project, and then listen for reflection back. And that on human-centric level, on a car level, the sound comes back the same because we know it. We speak that language, we know what it is. If it's on a societal level, it might come a bit distorted, so we don't know exactly how it might turn out, but we need to try it. So maybe mobility meets, logistics, or mobility meets user experience or entertainment. We need to try it out. Then planetary level, that's really foreign, the sun might not even come back. So we need to tune and position ourselves in new directions again. And to do that, we do it through open collaboration. We invite startups to work with us. We invite universities. And about last year, we launched also the Open Innovation Portal, the developer portal, where we, in the spirit of Volvo, as we gave away access to the seatbelt and so on, we gave away access to our APIs, to the 3D simulator and VR projects, so now everyone can use it. People can use our APIs to create apps for the cars. They can use our Android automotive emulator, so they can learn how to make apps, data sets for research. And some of the examples that started like that are like some VR projects where we use virtual experiences for product design. This is a classic. It's like the low-hanging fruit in automotive. Volvo's been using VR since the 80s. If you would see how those systems and headsets and cave systems look like, they were really massive, and they costed millions and millions. But that's a thing that designers want to do. They want to be able to evaluate systems early on. So we were thinking a bit, well, there's a team doing this. There's another team doing a safety simulator. There's another team doing UX research. None of them talk to each other. They're all using pretty much similar tools, and they all needed a car, a moose, or an environment. So then we said, why don't we democratize this and make it accessible for everyone in the company? So we made an end-to-end pipeline, from design concepts to simulators to retail to training. So we are able to cover the whole spectrum, and then, of course, we improve efficiency in a lot of projects. And if people use the same tool, they speak the same language. So then engineers, designers, managers, they understand what they're talking about. So in automotive, usually it takes like 7 years from early sketch to actually have the car outside of the factory. I'm always surprised when I see that we launch a car and we made it through the factory. It's like, how did this happen? Because it's so complex, so many negotiations. And with VR, we are able to do that like 2-3 weeks from when the sketch is done. And that's like every designer's dream, to be able to drive the car that they made the concept of. Then a lot of research, like as we have more software in the car, we need to focus on user experience, on interaction. How can we still make it safe so it's not destructive for people? So we use these tools, VR, eye tracking, biosensing, to actually understand the user more. Then when we're done with the car, we're ready to tell a story about it, like the classic car configurators, or like some projects about the future cities. Here are some examples of the configurators we did. The bottom part is what we did with Unity. So now 7 million people that downloads Unity, they're downloading the XC40 instead of example cube project to start with, which is huge branding for us. And then also it comes back because you have universities, education that use this data set to come up with new ideas. So we collaborate with design schools in California, in Georgia, in Chalmers, KTH, people that can actually use the data sets that we have. And that's because we found that every startup, every partner we interact with, they all ask for the same thing. Can we have access to a car model? Can we have access to this API to start a POC? So actually lower the threshold for people to be able to start proof of concepts and getting away, getting faster without having to wait for all the legal steps. So there are some terms and conditions, there is open, and then people can start doing their proof of concepts early on. Then simulation, of course, we launched this complex rig where we are able to drive with the headset and you just swipe between car models as you drive. That, again, improved the speed, improved the efficiency. We have the Tesla suits. So if you saw Ready Player One, the movie, that's exactly the suit. You can actually feel, touch, rain. I can actually control your hand. If I make this movement and you wear the suit, you will make that movement as well, even if you want or not. The suit, we are allowed to use it 10% of its power because we're not military trained, but actually it can throw you off the ground. It's like super strong. It uses electric impulses, so it's exactly how your brain sends impulses to your muscles to move. So that can be used for training, but also for ergonomics, understanding posture, because we use those test dummies, but nobody sits straight at the steering wheel. Everyone has like a wrong posture. So for us, it's easier to record those and simulate with it. Then, of course, as we look at self-driving cars, cameras, sensors, they all need to be trained in various scenarios. And those scenarios are either too rare or too dangerous to test in real life. Like we wouldn't put a car with software that was not tested on the road. We don't want to test on our customers. So then we do these simulations in Unity where we train camera models how to, learn how to park, how to detect objects, mooses, cars, or unexpected objects on the highway, like a mattress flying towards you or something. And it takes a lot of effort to build it, but when you have a pipeline and you make it modular, you're able to reuse things and exchange data. So we work with the company, and this is an example of a strong collaboration where there's this startup from Finland called Varjo. They made the most advanced headset in the world. Like if you tried VR before, this is 60 times better than what you tried. Like they have human eye resolution. It would translate around to 12 to 14K per eye. Like in VR, if you want to do research, you need to be able to read. With Oculus, HTC, and so on, everything is too blurry to actually tell the difference. For our head of design, like in the consumer ones, you can't see the differences and nuances of the materials. With this one, you see super sharp. And in the workshop, I will demo it. I brought one of them. I brought also a brainwave headset, so you can try some demos with it. But this headset allowed us to drive. We were the first company to actually drive on the road. I was the first one in the world. I was driving 160 per hour. My managers were a bit angry, but it was on a test track. And I didn't get sick, and I was just able to test various car concepts that we were working on. We can put the moose to cross the road, and it has also LiDAR. So if I look around this room, I have this room scanned, so somebody from Gothenburg can actually be next to me. And for telepresence, for remote work, it just works. It's super advanced, and it helps us in so many cases. And the nice thing is that we invested in them. We believed in them so much that we actually invested in their B and C round, and now they're on their way up to be a unicorn. They just push the boundaries so hard, and it's one of the examples on how we collaborated from an example. We shared the same vision, same values, and then we said, okay, let's work even closer together. So here's some money, and now we are like a family. Like, we have these channels where we communicate as being the same team from the same company. They always tell us, hey Volvo, we are about to launch this, or we're thinking about this. What do you think from automotive perspective or beyond? Do you guys want to participate? Then, as I said, the Tesla suit and motion capture. This is like really interesting cases. I had some students that made this training an ABB robot that is training our sensor. You know, about the Volvo, when you kick your foot, the tailgate opens. That never works, right? So it's because the robot is training that sensor, and it's like so unreliable. So what two students, like one from Chalmers and one from Lyon, they're thinking, what if we wear the suit and we record a more human foot movement, and then they translated that movement and velocity to an ABB robot that was training the sensor 1,000 times, and then that actually improved how the sensor works. And it's a case we didn't think about. We just showcased students and people, this is tools we have fun, come with ideas, and then we might help you. So that's how we work with innovation in that sense. Then, of course, new ways of interaction, like how we will interact with future screens. Will we use eye tracking, haptics, like Tesla says they're doing gloves as well, which are, you can feel touch. So in VR, if I have a wall in front of me, this will actually stop my hand. Even if I want to push it through, I can't. So it really adds to the immersion. And the human brain gets tricked really fast. Like, I see it when I have a virtual car and we open the door, everyone kind of, even if they're used to it, they kind of try to stand out of the way. So I'll show you some videos. Here is how we work with LiDAR. Now this is not only self-driving cars, but you have it in your iPhones, so you can scan things with your iPhone. Training cameras, sensors in Unity, for user experience, trying concepts like highway pilot. With the suits, being able to record different motion, as I said, just allows us to try more and more things. And every week we have new use cases, from ergonomics, design, retail. Here you can see that we're driving the car. This is filmed through the headset directly, and we can replace the car with another model as we drive. And then the car speed, the navigation, we can try head-up display concepts, things that don't exist yet, but they are connected to the car signals, so we can actually test it in real life. Then we're testing like outside the car. What if a moose crosses here? How do we communicate that to the driver? And here you can see that we were thinking of this head-up display concept, that the car wants to know if you saw the moose, and you need to know that the car sees the moose. So you know that the car will break. Otherwise, you have this conflict between human and the car. And that's when accidents happen. If you don't communicate correctly the intention and who's in control, it might get really tricky. With COVID, as Elena mentioned, it's like this remote collaboration became a big thing. So we looked on, during COVID, not many people could work from home. I mean, building a car is not as easy to work from your kitchen or so on. It's like you need to be around it. It's a complex product. So we wanted to make that accessible to everyone. So here you can see that the car appears in the lab in Helsinki. The reflection matches, the light matches. You can sit in it. People from California can join, Shanghai. You can see your own hands in VR, which is crazy. You can interact with it. That really adds to the immersion. Then from the lab, you're in Venice, because why not? It can just put the car anywhere, and that just gives it context, so we can actually understand does this features work in certain scenarios, or like culturally, or on a social level. So we can use the same car for simulation, for retail, to tell the story. So it's so important to build a really strong pipeline. And I'm super lucky that Volvo has one of the strongest design teams in the world, because otherwise I couldn't make any of this. So for me, it's easy to tell the stories and use the beautiful work they did and just throw it in VR, but you really need to have a strong team behind it. So this actually made us make history. Like when we launched the project with Vario, I was in San Francisco in the morning and I woke up to this. It was all over the news since 2 years ago and still counting. Every week, if there is a VR article, they mention that 2 years ago or like previously Volvo did that. Like even when Ferrari was the first brand to launch a car in Fortnite, the article started, Volvo, some years ago, they were playing with this and this and this. Now Ferrari took it to the next level. But still, the way they mention it is because we created impact. And this is a dream I didn't have. It was a dream of mine. We were on Adam Savage tested, like Mythbusters. Having Mythbusters approving your myth was like something that I watched as a kid on Discovery Channel, and seeing a project that you work on being approved and, them being amazed, it was something that, blew me off, and it made me remember why I do what I do. So again, coming back to innovation arena and looking back at this XR project, one important thing is like, what is the right question we try to solve? How to act with so much freedom? A lot of people can't deal with freedom. They think it's too much, that it's not focused. And it's like it takes a lot of discipline to work in freedom. And that really helps you, to move from vision to execution. And especially in XR, there's so much buzzwords, so much, in the future we will do this and that, as Elena mentioned, like virtual concerts. But there's so many things, so much gravity that hits you when you try to do this. But that only comes when you understand how to move from learning to understanding, how you put pieces together. As I said, like when you build a whole pipeline that solves more problems. Because with efficiency, when you strive for efficiency and you only fix it in one place, it might actually cause more problems on the way. So it's not necessarily that you did a good thing. So you have to look at the whole pipeline. And Elena knows I'm a big fan of the Krebs cycle. It's from Neri Oxman from MIT. She works with architecture, biotechnology, and she talks a lot about this intersection between art, science, engineering, and design. And that's what we're trying to do also at Volvo. Like, if we want a new identity, we need to go back to art and science and then pour it back to engineering and design. And because you want to influence, with science comes knowledge, and then you work on utility, you influence behavior influences culture. So then you need to go in these cycles over and over. So that's why we started to look beyond only the product. how we work with future vision, with world building, as Elena mentioned. So yeah, these are some quick things that I want to keep for the workshop, so I will skip them. Yeah, so some of the things we look and imagine is like, how will new interaction in these glasses look like? And that's where we start using, in Unity, there are a lot of interaction systems. And it's so crazy with these tools nowadays because you have such a big community, so much testing done on so many applications. So for us, if you have a problem and you want to do, or an idea, if you just Google it, out of 7 million people, probably somebody solved it before. So that actually helped us think about the idea of how to build like a common product simulator where we put design, features, function, concepts all together so we can actually use it for workshops, people understanding how the future product will look like, so we can take decisions. And we did this together with Unity. They actually, around 5 years ago when we started with this, I just saw some job ads from Unity. They were hiring a lot of automotive people. So I called the previous CEO and I was like, what's happening? It's like, oh, funny that you call now. We're expanding beyond games. We look into construction, architecture, space, military, gaming. And we're like, oh, tell us more. Can we participate? So then we came to an arrangement that we have access to their latest tool and they learn what automotive really needs. So we actually gave them requirements and feedback on the things that they were doing. So that helped us to build this complex tool where, did it crash again? Yeah, it doesn't play the video. Anyways. But then if we move from a product like this to the way we imagine the future, how do we do it? How do we put people in context? How can the managers understand, the decisions that we need to make? How does policymakers or people understand that, okay, this might be a safer option to have on the road, or this might be more sustainable? And again, working with VR, we are able to actually build those stories, build the concepts, focus on interaction, so they can actually try it out. I got this question from Elena like 2 years ago for VR SciFest, where like what can I see clearly today that I didn't see 12 months ago? And I don't know why this slide is white. The text doesn't appear. But yeah, we see a lot of trends that were like emerging during COVID, like remote work. A lot of things moved online. So the pressure on the whole virtual and digital transformation pushed a lot. Then how like a future of retail, as Elena mentioned, like selling in the metaverse, launching products like Polestar, for instance, together with Balenciaga, they launched a car concept and a fashion line in a game, so people can actually experience, but also with the story behind it. And that creates a lot of context. So by mapping a lot of trends that we're seeing, like AD electrification, entertainment, in-cabin entertainment, we are having this Mobility X Lab, probably you know it, in Gothenburg, where together with other partners, Ericsson, Volvo Group, Volvo Cars, SEFT, we have this accelerator where we're attracting about 50 startups per program, and we're helping them to partner up with these big industries and finding use cases. And lately, a lot of this beyond cars started to emerge even more. Then we have incubator together with Drive Tel Aviv, which Tel Aviv starts to be like a big startup scene. I mean, they've been for a while, but it's like a really interesting culture there. Like they're all military trained. They do their due diligence. They have like this kibbutz, like, hey, I have a cousin that makes sensors and I have another brother that he does hardware, so they do business together. And since they have the military background, a lot of those technologies that were done so many years ago, they're kind of ready for consumers, and it's a really hot area. So we have presence in Silicon Valley. We have an office there where we work with startups, with the big tech giants, but we see like a big change and big transformation, like focus moving from Silicon Valley to Tel Aviv to Berlin, and Europe is emerging a lot. Like I was listening some time ago to David Helgeson from Unity and Matthias from EQT Ventures, and they were talking that there was so many billions that were not accessed in Europe in the past year. Like startups don't apply. EU funds, Vinnova, same. Like people don't apply for projects, or they don't apply correctly, and it's not a question about there's no money there to actually support innovation and create solutions, but there is somewhere a disconnect between vision, implementation, and actually forming a right ecosystem. Yeah, and as I said, we see this transformation moving from PCs to mobile phones, smartphones, and as Elena said, the next thing might be glasses, VR, and personal robotics, and the emergence of AI, XR, and these areas, like it really prepares us for the future. And as a kid, or like not kid, but like before I been distracted of being a musician, I thought about the future where we'll all wear glasses, where we will have wearables and so on. But then I understood that all that is already happening in automotive. The sensors they were getting on the phones now, cars had it like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like those cameras, lidars, the technology to make sense of the environment around you. That's been out there, I mean, for self-driving cars or for safety. That's crucial, like to have like ultrasonics cameras to understand with computer vision, object detection. So the whole area is huge, like full of opportunities. So I was trying to learn from it, like as I said, from teaching a car how to park itself to scanning the lab and posture and using LiDAR to scan objects in rooms. And we see that in retail is changing a lot. With the iPhone 12 and 13, you can just scan this room and have a virtual representation of it, which is way more accurate and natural than actually 3D modeling. Because in 3D modeling, it takes forever to create those imperfections, the scratches, the dirt on the glass, and those small details, they really creates the immersion. Then what Elena talked about, Apple Glass, there is a cool concept that I like about it. I don't know if, the video should play. But there are a lot of people on Twitter and LinkedIn that create these concepts and future scenarios. And it does help a lot when you imagine the future and how your daily life could be. And, skipping the mobile phone and have everything so convenient, right? Like you're going with your bike and you have the navigation, and it could, open for so much potential. Like virtual real estate, right? Like it already happens with NFTs. I have colleagues that just bought Ullevi in Gothenburg as an NFT. Might value something someday. Then for entertainment, for work and efficiency, as I said, like you forget your colleague's name and then you get a queue, and for immersion and actually working together. Of course, a lot of it is gimmicky, but we see that a lot of these things are adopted in today's tools in a way or another, even through 2D or 3D. But what I like about this video, it's like towards the end, and it's one of the reasons why I continue to work and push this industry. And it kind of connects back to a Swedish way of doing things, to being lagom or like omtanke. If you see here, you don't want to see this in your life full of ads and information. You want to be able to tune everything off. And it's like to have low cognitive load. And that's something we think in the cars as well. Like, how how can we not stress the user more than they are in traffic, for instance? So not everyone knows, but the blinker sound in a Volvo, it's actually somebody cracking wood in a Swedish forest. And we did a lot of research that on your brain, it actually calms you down. And then a lot of all the parking sensor and beeps, they're there to actually calm you down, not to make you more stressed in a stressful situation. And that it's really interesting in also VR. There was a conference in San Diego where I did a bit something too much, or like it was perceived a bit too much, but I pushed the boundaries just to make a point. So it was this AR app, simple one, but what it did, I could blur every person of color in the room. So it was like a really dystopic and wrong scenario, but it is to show that it can happen now. It won't happen in 5, 10, 20 years. In a dystopic Black Mirror episode, it can happen now. So what do we do about it? What ethical framework can we build around it? And same with AI and XR. That's why Google Glasses and also the Ray-Bans are so controversial, because you don't want to be filmed when somebody walks and wears those around. Apple is taking another approach. If you look at their patents, they work with LiDAR. With LiDAR, it's just a reconstruction of point clouds. Apple is scanning now every Starbucks in the US, 3D scan. Just imagine the scenario. You walk in, hey Siri, I want my Frappuccino, and then you see the arrow where it is. They don't even need to write your name anymore, and it's there, and you can interact and add other ingredients to it. And that can happen. It has utility, but then is also this dystopic version about privacy. How much privacy are you willing to give to get that utility, the efficiency, or to have a better life? And it does come a lot from, for instance, last summer there was this social dilemma movie where it made everyone talk about social media, and we see it yesterday. Facebook was down for about 6-7 hours. These things are happening, and it's hard to imagine the future if we don't start working on it and start making rules about it before it's too late, as we did with social media. So that's one of the reasons, for instance, why I work and my friends work with these technologies. We're looking for how far it's too far to be able to talk about it and take, collective decision and talk with policymakers to say, okay, what can be done? Of course, there is the entertainment factor. It can help us to produce cars more efficiently, but at what cost? But to do that, we looked at world building and storytelling. So Elena introduced me to a great person, Alex McDowell from UCL. He actually invented this system of world building where in movies and games. So he worked on Minority Report and Avatar and Fight Club and a lot of things where they're imagining future scenarios, not science fiction, but future reality. Where in Minority Report, they started with how does Tom Cruise go to work in 2040? And in that movie, they invented self-driving cars. They invented Siri. They invented AR. They invented, different cities and skyscrapers from, sustainable materials and so on. And it's being able to have such a rich context, and that helps you to tell stories in a different way. And you start with the origin, as I said, with the question, and then you look at the philosophy, religion, customs, culture. Again, it comes back to that art, science, engineering, design, how to actually make impact from a human-centric to society to planetary boundaries. And again, in this movie, I think there was 90 patents that were developed just by it, owned by Apple, Lexus, MIT, because they work together. And we started to work on it together with him. So we look at what does Omtanke mean in 2050? What did it mean 100 years ago? What it means now when we have a Chinese owner? Stuff like that. can we look beyond the car? Is there something for us in the future beyond the SUV? Should we continue making SUVs? Should we make more cars on the road? So we ask those questions, and through storytelling and creating this future possibilities and scenarios, we are able to have those conversations. I know it was a bit of everywhere, but like I wanted to show kind of a journey from startup thinking, going to corporate, but still keeping that creative and startup open-mindedness. The nice stuff in a corporation is that you have access to resources. You have a legal department. I know when I was working in a startup, to file a patent and dealing with lawyers, made me bankrupt in that sense. So then, of course, XR is progressing. It's like so many startups there. They're like pushing the boundaries. But we, in our lab, we try to combine it in unique ways. So we're striving to have like the most advanced setup, like for simulations, for storytelling, retail, like combining haptics. We talked about smell in a workshop, like eye tracking, all the senses to be able to have this seamless immersion. And then what are the ethical and what is like the price that we need to pay with some of these advancements, especially if they go through commercialization. So I do encourage everyone to stay ahead of the curve, try to be, on top of things, get informed. There's like a lot of channels where you can learn, a lot of conferences in this topic. And yeah, I don't know why this is white. The text doesn't appear there. Should have a black background. But anyways, thank you. Q&A. All right.
Do we have a room for Q&A, Timmy? Is it okay?
I would say yes. I don't know about
perfect.
the others. Yeah.
So we have a question here, or it's more of a welcoming to reflect a bit more on the challenge of creating effective public-private ecosystems where vision meets practice, funding meets entrepreneurs. So could you reflect a bit more on that challenging?
Yeah,
challenges?
Yes. I mean, that's why we started to think about this ecosystem. It's like what we realized is what's the reason for the startups and other industries, for instance, here in Sweden, to actually work with us. Usually car companies doesn't have like the best connotation or reputation. Like they're like, oh, the corporates in suits. Like that's why I present my story in that sense. Because they're like, I lowered the threshold. People see that I'm a nerd like them or like a creative like them, so I can talk with them on a more personal level, and then we can start talking about solutions and how we can collaborate. But usually it's pretty hard, but what we saw is that people want to work with us because of kindness. Again, omtanke. It's like practicing listening before you push your product or a solution. And to be able to be really practical there, it needs to come through emergence. Just, big variety. And I like that that's what you guys do here in Varberg. You don't work necessarily only with deep tech or one specific topic, but just if you have a big variety, it opens up for emergence. And then those intersections can create other ideas, other businesses, other startups out of it. So if you have that healthy ecosystem of inspiring each other, and then some good, probably big industries as partners to actually help those scale up, then that can be, that can lead to success in that sense.
Thank you. And we have another question here from a digital participant. And if there's someone here in the physical room who wants to ask a question, you can come here and use the mic. It's okay. So you can just stand here. But there's another question from a digital participant. If I want to develop a career in XR technology, what will be the initial step I need to do to develop my career in XR technology in automotive field?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, as I said, understanding the problem and the context around the problem, and learn Unity. I mean, Unity or Unreal, now there's so many tools that can do that, and it's really easy to create proof of concepts now. Like I say that we got to a point with the tools that there's no excuse not to be innovative or like, make a good solution, or like, academia and research, probably Elena wouldn't like me to say that, but usually their demos look like crap because it's like they want to prove the point and so on. But if you actually add that extra effort to make, high quality renderings, not realistic, photorealistic, but believable environments and physics and so on, that can actually improve also the research a lot. And I would say try to learn like how to create not only the coding part and focusing on interaction, but like learn about user experience. And I will show a bit in the workshop on what are the keys that you can use, like sound. People omit sound in VR, but I always say that it's 60% of the experience. Like you make a snap, you make the people look there. And then you are in control of the flow of the story. So you can actually optimize the things that they don't look at. So you can actually play with people through sounds and visual cues a lot. And that it's really important for virtual reality, like having that strong connection between sound and visuals. So yeah, learn Unity and be creative. What can I say?
Thank you, Timmy. You do your best. We have a question here from the physical participant as well, Lisa.
Thank you. I have a question how you work with, historically, it's not been very safe for women to be in a car. It's not designed for our lesser muscle. We have a lot of the safety parts has been overlooked. So how do you work with that forward?
Yeah, we actually had about 2 years EVA initiative where we actually pushed the whole industry, the automotive industry, to focus also on women, on kids, because the test dummies they were using in most of the companies were like male dummies or like having the same height and posture. So we were doing a lot of research on trying to cover all the cases because, to your point, like because of the different posture, they're more exposed to whiplash and like, hitting their head, breaking their necks and so on. Exactly. So there's a lot of research that we actually gave away as the seatbelt to actually make other companies follow, learn from that research and apply it. Internally in research, as with the Tesla suits, we are trying to cover like a big variety and spectrum of different body postures and kids, female, male body types, tall, short, and we tried to simulate as well. Like we tried to capture a spectrum by recording like real people postures. As I said, nobody sits super stiff. But then we also simulate the in-between, the variations. We can tweak that, and that's what we try to make available, like through this EVA research initiative. Yeah.
Thank you. Don't think we have really time for another question, but this is also it's from Liridonna. She sent you both hugs and something to take home. What will it take for automotive industry to get outside the format of 4 wheels boxes and think movement as a form of architectural design? So you don't have to.
Okay. Yes, I won't answer.
30 seconds answer. Do you have it?
No, I mean, this is like a really important question, but it goes back to ancient Rome, and a car width is still 2 horse asses next to each other. It didn't change ever since. I mean, streets evolved from that, and cars, there are carriages and then cars. It's like 3 iterations. So to get to something else, like that's why I work with XR. I challenge them that it's not freedom to move from A to B, but freedom not to move. And Corona showed us that. Like, what about freedom to move mentally? Or like, what about through a remote VR service? Like, that I can be on a conference in Stockholm by being in Varberg or so on. And I can still enjoy the nature here. And yeah, so I think that's one of the ways where we can pass from four wheels. There are other options, flying cars and so on, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Thank you, Timmy. Thank you so much, everyone.